In Excel, when you get past the end of a printable page as defined by your current page setup, Excel will insert an automatic page break. Sometimes these automatic page breaks occur in places where you would rather not have them occur. They may leave data on a second page orphaned from the rest of the worksheet. Maybe they leave the titles of columns on one page while the supporting data appears on the next page. Either way, in Excel you can adjust the page breaks so that all of the data that you want will be scaled to fit on a single printable sheet. To change where the page breaks occur in a worksheet, you can use the Page Break Preview. To get there, you can click the Page Break Preview button that appears in the Workbook Views group on the View tab within the ribbon. This will display your worksheet in the Page Break Preview, showing you the page breaks in your worksheet. Page breaks are represented in this view by dashed blue lines. Click and drag the dashed blue lines that represent your page breaks and drop them in the location where you want the page to break. Make sure that the breaks are where you want them to be located, and then click the Normal button in the Workbook Views button group on the View tab in the ribbon to return to the normal view of your workbook. Note that once you have inspected the page breaks in your document using the Page Break Preview window, you will then see them in the normal view of your worksheet as dashed black lines. You can click the Page Layout button that appears within the Workbook Views button group on the View tab in the ribbon to see how your workbook will appear when printed. In this mode, you can see the margins and the allowable room for header and footer data along with the information from your worksheet. Often, this is the preferred view to use when you are changing the settings for your workbook in the Page Setup dialog box or when using the buttons available in the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab within the ribbon. Just as with other workbook views, you can return to the normal view of the workbook when you are finished by clicking the Normal button that appears in the Workbook Views button group on the View tab in the ribbon. To adjust the settings of the workbook for printing purposes, open the Page Setup dialog box. You can access this dialog box by clicking the Page Setup dialog box button in the lower right corner of the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab within the ribbon. The Page Setup dialog box allows you to make changes to your worksheet's printed layout. It consists of 4 tabs: Page, Margins, Header and Footer, and Sheet. You can click on any one of these tabs to set the corresponding attributes of the worksheet prior to printing. When finished, you simply click the OK button within the dialog box to apply your changes. To adjust the page settings of the workbook before printing it, open the Page Setup dialog box by clicking the Page Setup dialog box button that appears in the lower right corner of the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab in the ribbon. Then click the Page tab within the dialog box. To set the page orientation, choose an option button for either Portrait or Landscape within the Orientation section. Selecting Landscape is very useful for printing worksheets that are very wide. In the Scaling section, you set the amount of scaling of the text in the worksheet. You can increase it to make the printout more easily readable, or scale it down to fit more printed data on a page. You can select the Adjust To option and then set a percentage in the text box to the right of that, which sets at what percentage of the default size the information should print. When you are adjusting the page breaks in the Page Break Preview, what you are really doing is adjusting this value, which can then set more data on a printable page. You could also select the Fit To option button and then enter the number of pages across and down into the 2 spinner boxes that follow that option in the Scaling section. Below the Scaling section, use the Paper Size drop-down to select the size of paper to which you will be printing the worksheet. You can use the Print Quality drop-down to set a print quality in dots per inch. You can type a number into the First Page Number text box to set the first page to display that number as the starting point in the header or footer when printing, assuming that you added page numbering. To set worksheet margins before printing, open the Page Setup dialog box by clicking the Page Setup dialog box button in the lower right corner of the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab within the ribbon. Then click the Margins tab within the dialog box. On the Margins tab, you can set the print margins for your worksheet. Use the spinner arrows at the right of each Margins text box to set the top, right, bottom, and left margins widths in inches. You can also set how far in from the top or bottom edge the header and footer data will print by setting that value into the header and footer text boxes. You can also check the check boxes under the Center on Page section to center the worksheet data horizontally or vertically within the printed page. To create the headers and footers within the workbook before printing it, open the Page Setup dialog box by clicking the Page Setup dialog box button that appears in the lower right corner of the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab within the ribbon. Then click the Header Footer tab within the dialog box. On the Header Footer tab, you will see the header and footer for your current worksheet. You may use the header or footer drop-down boxes on this tab to select from some pre-made standard heading information, or you can click the Custom Header or Custom Footer buttons to create a custom header or footer into which you can type your own data. If you choose to create a custom header or custom footer, then the header or footer dialog box will appear. Here you can click into either the left section, center section, or right section text boxes and type your header or footer information into those spaces provided. Excel also provides you with multiple buttons that allow you to insert pre-created fields of information into your headers and footers. These buttons are Format Text, Insert Page Number, Insert Number of Pages, Insert Date, Insert Time, Insert File Path, Insert File Name, Insert Sheet Name, Insert Picture, and Format Picture. Click any of these buttons to insert that type of information into the currently selected area in your custom header or footer. Note that you can also select text that you have typed into your custom header or footer, and then click the Format Text button to modify the font or font size. You can also place images into the header and footer area. You can click the Insert Picture button and then use the Insert Picture dialog box that appears to select the image that you want to insert. You can then use the Format Picture button to edit the properties of the selected image. Once you have set the appearance of your custom header or custom footer in either the header or footer dialog boxes, just click the OK button to return to the Page Setup dialog box. Notice that there are 4 checkboxes at the bottom of the Header and Footer tab: Different Odd and Even Pages, Different First Page, Scale with Document, and Align with Page Margins. To print different header or footer information for odd and even pages, the first page, or both, check either or both the Different Odd and Even Pages and or the Different First Page checkboxes as needed. Then click either the Custom Header or the Custom Footer button to open the Header or Footer dialog box. You then have 2 or 3 tabs depending upon your checkbox selections for each unique header or footer you need to create in your workbook. Click the tab of the custom header or footer you want to set before you add the desired header or footer content. Then create the content in the same way as you created a single custom header or footer. Once again, when finished, click the OK button to return to the Header Footer tab in the Page Setup dialog box. The last 2 checkboxes on this tab allow you to scale the headers and footer along with the worksheet content if needed, and align the headers and footers with the page margins specified in the Margins tab. To adjust the worksheet settings before printing it, you can open the Page Setup dialog box by clicking the Page Setup dialog box button in the lower right corner of the Page Setup button group on the Page Layout tab in the ribbon. Then click the Sheet tab within the dialog box. The Sheet tab allows you to set additional worksheet options for printing. In the Print Area text box, you can enter or select a cell range to print. You can click the Collapse Dialog button at the right end of this text box to collapse the dialog box down. Then you can click and drag over the cells that you want to set as the print area. You must, however, click the Expand Dialog button at the right end of the text box to expand the dialog box again. Be careful if you choose to assign a print area. Once set, it will always and forever print only that selected range of cells. So be sure to delete the entry that you make into this text box before saving your worksheet. In the Print Titles section, you can set selected columns to repeat at the left of each page, or set selected rows to repeat at the top of each printed page. To select rows to repeat at the top of each printed page, click the Collapse Dialog button at the right end of the Rows to Repeat at Top text box, and then click anywhere into the rows that you want to repeat at the top of each printed page. When finished, click the Expand Dialog Box button to expand the dialog box again. You can do the same thing with the Columns to Repeat at Left text box to set selected columns to repeat at the left side of each printed page. In the Print section of the Sheet tab, you can check or uncheck the checkboxes to print or not print grid lines, black and white, draft quality, or row and column headings. You can also change the display of errors in cells by using the Cell Errors As dropdown to select blank. This will cause cell errors to display as blanks. This is useful if you are displaying an average in a formula that does not have information to average yet. Normally, there would be a divide by zero error message shown in this case because you cannot divide by zero. You can change the error message shown by using this dropdown. Also, if you have comments that have been inserted into your spreadsheet, you can use the Comments dropdown to select how the comments should be printed in your worksheet if they are printed at all. In the Page Order section, you can also set the print order of the worksheet pages to over then down, or down then over for very large worksheets that have page breaks both horizontally and vertically.